If you're listening to this right now, maybe your mind is busy replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow, or feeling that familiar ache of loneliness that no one quite understands. Perhaps you've had a long day where you gave too much and received too little. Or maybe you're simply tired in a way that goes beyond the body, a soul deep weariness. Whatever brought you here, this moment is yours. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to be anyone else. You are enough just as you are. Take a moment to gently adjust your posture. Whether you're lying down or resting in a quiet seat, let your shoulders soften. Take a slow, deep breath. And as you exhale, imagine letting go of the weight you've been carrying. You are safe now. You are held in this space, in this stillness. Nothing is expected of you. You can simply listen and rest. As you breathe in, know that you're not alone. Somewhere in New York, someone else is listening too, hoping to find calm. In Tokyo, a gentle soul is letting go of the day. In London, someone like you is resting their heart. All across the world, quiet hearts are tuning in, finding comfort in the same silence, the same story, the same breath. If you feel like sharing, leave a comment below. Let us know where you're listening from or how you're feeling right now. You never know who needs to hear. They're not alone. Here on the Zen Buddhism channel, I offer you something simpler. Bedtime stories woven with the timeless wisdom of Zen. All you have to do is listen. Your presence here is already a form of practice. Your stillness is already transformation. Over time, just by returning to this space, you may find that something within you softens and changes. Tonight's story is an invitation to return to something essential. A reminder that happiness doesn't arrive only when everything is perfect. It begins quietly with the seeds we plant in everyday moments. The small intentions, the quiet awareness, the kind thoughts. You don't need to strive for joy. You only need to notice and nurture. So if life has felt overwhelming lately, know this: peace is not far away. It is already here, waiting gently beneath the surface. You don't have to become anything to reach it. You only need to come home to yourself now. Let's begin. James was 45. On paper, he had lived the kind of life people often admire: ambitious, relentless, determined. Years ago, he had left behind his wife, his children, and the quiet comfort of ordinary days to chase a dream he believed was worth everything. He wanted to build something that mattered, something that would prove he was more than just another man with hopes. And for a while, it seemed to work. The company grew. The recognition came. The money followed. But along the way, James forgot why he started. Or maybe he never really knew. Tonight, he sat alone in the top floor office of what used to be his company. The room was nearly empty. Just a few cardboard boxes, a cold coffee on the desk, and a worn-out man staring at the lights of the city through a window too high to open. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was loud, like a question echoing inside him with no answer. He had climbed hard, fast, sacrificed sleep, missed birthdays, skipped meals, ignored his health. Every step driven by the belief that the summit would bring peace, that once he got there, the emptiness would disappear. But here he was at the top, and he had never felt more lost. He realized there was no one at the peaks, no finish line, just air. James wasn't afraid of starting over. He was afraid that maybe he'd never actually started. That all this time, he had been running up a mountain that didn't belong to him, and now he was too tired to come back down. Outside, the city kept moving, but in this quiet room, something inside James was still. He closed his eyes for a moment. The weight in his chest didn't lift, but it softened just a little. Maybe it wasn't about climbing faster. Maybe it was about not forgetting to breathe. Maybe the path he needed now wasn't one that reached higher, but one that returned inward. And so, in this quiet breaking point, not dramatic, not loud, a new kind of question began to form. What if the real effort was not to strive harder, but to stop running, just for tonight? Could he simply pause? That night, James didn't sleep. The silence in the office followed him home, but it offered no rest. By morning, something inside him had shifted. He didn't want answers. He just needed to breathe somewhere else. So he got in the car and drove not to escape, but to step away from the noise long enough to hear what remained. James didn't plan to go hiking. He just kept driving until the buildings thinned out and the road narrowed into hills. The city was behind him, but it still echoed inside. Somewhere past noon, he pulled over near a quiet trailhead. There was a sign, faded and wooden, pointing toward a forest path. No name, no promises, just a way forward. He got out of the car, locked it without thinking, and began walking. The air smelled like pine and old earth. For a while, the silence was almost comforting. But the trail wasn't easy. It was steeper than it looked. James wasn't dressed for it, wasn't fit for it either. But he kept going. Part of him didn't want to stop, as if walking hard enough might erase something. After an hour, his legs were trembling. His breath was short. Sweat soaked through the back of his shirt. He stopped by a bend in the trail. sat on a low stone, and stared at the dirt between his shoes. He felt the familiar heat of frustration rising not just from the walk, but from everything. He had built a life chasing heights, and here he was, unable to climb a hill without falling apart. Then came the sound of footsteps. Slow, rhythmic. James looked up and saw an old man approaching, walking with a wooden stick, clothes simple and dusty, like he'd been on this trail for days. The man's pace was slow, but not weak. There was something grounded in it, like he was part of the mountain itself. When he reached James, he offered a kind nod. "You all right?" he asked. James gave a breathless half-smile. "Trying to be," he said. The man looked at the slope ahead, then said, "Climbing isn't about speed. It's about not giving up." James didn't respond right away. He watched as the man tapped his stick once on the earth and kept walking. Not fast, not stopping, just moving like the wind or time. James sat there a while longer. The ache in his body didn't go away, but somehow it felt less important. Maybe this wasn't failure. Maybe this was the beginning of a different kind of effort. James didn't follow right away. He sat there for a while, watching the old man's figure grow smaller along the trail. Something about the steady rhythm of those footsteps pulled at him. Not rushed, not forced, just present. When James finally stood up, his legs still ached, but the weight in his chest had shifted. He wasn't sure why, but he began to walk again. Not to catch up, just to move forward. The man was still within sight, a few turns ahead, walking as if time wasn't chasing him. James tried to match that pace, but it felt strange, slower than he was used to. His mind kept wanting to speed up, to calculate how long until the top. But the trail didn't care. The trees didn't hurry. The wind moved as it pleased. So James breathed, deeply, slowly. He let each step land fully before the next began. At first, it felt awkward, then quiet, then something close to ease. A little later, the old man paused near a clearing. James caught up, heart beating calmly for the first time in days. They stood together without speaking, watching sunlight filter through the leaves. Then the old man turned and said softly, "Right effort isn't about trying harder. It's about walking with presence and not giving up." The words sank in like water on dry earth. James didn't answer. He didn't need to. He knew they were true. As they walked on, James noticed things he had never seen before. The way moss grew in little patches along the stones. The way his breath rose and fell like waves. The way his body was tired but alive. He realized he had spent years chasing moments, but never really being in them. Always reaching, never arriving. But here, on this nameless trail, each step felt like enough. There was no goal, no audience, no prize. And yet something inside him softened. It wasn't really, not quite joy either. Just a quiet kind of thankfulness he hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't climbing anymore to get somewhere. He was walking to remember how it feels to be here. The mountain didn't change James. It just gave him space to remember what he had forgotten. When he returned to the city, nothing dramatic happened. The buildings were still tall. The streets were still loud. But something inside him had shifted. He didn't go back to the company. He didn't chase a new project or make promises to rebuild what had been lost. Instead, he chose a quieter path. Not a retreat from life, but a different way of living it. He started waking up earlier, not to get ahead, but to sit by the window and drink his coffee slowly. He called his children, not to apologize for the years gone by, but simply to listen to their voices. He took long walks without music, letting silence fill the space that used to feel so empty. He still worked, still showed up, but with softer steps. He no longer rushed to prove he was enough. He had come to understand something deeper, that worth isn't earned by speed. That peace doesn't come at the finish line. That meaning can be found in the middle of the path. If you're willing to notice, he began living like he walked on that trail slow, steady, not to arrive, but to be present. Some days were harder, some steps were heavier, but he kept going, not with force, not with fear, just with a quiet kind of faith that each step mattered. Even if no one saw it, even if there was no destination at all, because now he believed it. You don't have to rush to be worthy. You just have to keep walking. And maybe you, too, have been running for a long time. Maybe your legs are tired. Maybe your heart is too. So before you take your next step, pause and ask yourself gently, what would happen if you walked slower but never stopped? Take a moment now to let go of the day. You've heard the story of James. You've walked with him through effort, exhaustion, and a quiet kind of remembering. And now, this is your path, your breath, your step. Imagine this with me. You are walking up a mountain, but this time, there's no one waiting at the top. No crowd. No applause. No finish line. And the truth is, you don't need to get there quickly. You don't even need to get there today. Feel your body as it is. You're not trying to change it. You're just noticing the way your feet meet the earth, the way your shoulders rise gently as you breathe in and soften as you breathe out. There is no rush here. Let the rhythm of your breath be your guide. Inhale and feel the air enter your chest. Exhale and let something heavy melt away. Just one breath, one step, and again. Picture the trail beneath your feet. It's quiet. The trees around you don't ask for anything. The wind brushes past your skin like a whisper. The sun warms your back. Not too much. Just enough. You're not climbing to prove anything. You're not walking to escape. You're just here, fully here, one small step at a time. Maybe you've rushed through too much of your life. Maybe you've carried the weight of not doing enough or doing too much. Maybe you've run for so long, you forgot how to walk. But here, on this quiet trail, you're invited to let go of all that. You're not lazy. You're not lost. You're simply learning how to move again with kindness, with care, with presence. With each inhale, feel the steadiness of the ground beneath you. With each exhale, soften into this moment. No goal, no pressure, just movement. Just breathe. Just you and the mountain. You may slow down. You may stop to rest. But you are still on the path. And that is enough. So breathe and take one more step. Eleanor was 76. She had lived in the same small house at the edge of town for over 40 years. The garden out front was quiet now, just like the rooms inside. Her husband had passed away 3 winters ago. And since then, the days had blurred together like soft watercolor, pale, quiet, and a little too empty. This morning, like so many others, she sat by the kitchen window. The sunlight spilled gently through the lace curtain, painting patterns on the wooden floor. Outside, the wind moved the leaves in slow motion. The ceiling fan above hummed its familiar song. The toaster clicked softly, and the smell of warm bread drifted into the air. It was peaceful. Nothing was wrong, but something was missing. Eleanor wrapped her hands around a mug of tea, now only warm, and stared out the window without really seeing. She had loved mornings once. They used to begin with laughter, a bit of music, the sound of him humming while he buttered the toast. Now they began in silence and stayed that way. People said grief faded with time, but no one ever talked about the dull ache that remained not sharp enough to cry, not loud enough to speak of, but there like a quiet weight in the chest. She didn't feel dramatic or broken, just untethered. Some mornings, she would ask herself why she still made toast, why she still opened the curtains, why she still set the table for one. The answers never came, but the routine continued, as if her body remembered how to live even when her heart wasn't sure. She took a slow bite of the toast. The edges were just right, golden and crisp. The way she liked it. The way he used to make it. She closed her eyes and let the warmth sit on her tongue. Outside, a bird called once, then flew off. Eleanor breathed in and out. A morning like any other. Stillness everywhere. And yet inside her, a small part whispered that maybe the quiet wasn't only absence. Maybe it was space. She didn't know what for. Not yet. But she stayed with it just a little longer. The days had a quiet rhythm, and Eleanor rarely expected surprises. But that morning, just as she took her first bite of toast, there was a gentle knock at the door. Not loud, not urgent, just enough to pull her out of her thoughts. She opened it slowly, unsure who it could be at this hour. Standing there was Lily, the little girl from next door, holding a small jar wrapped in a red ribbon. Her hair was a bit messy, and she had crumbs on her sleeve. She smiled shyly, then held out the jar with both hands. "It's strawberry jam," she said. "My mom and I made it yesterday. I thought maybe you'd like some. I always see you sitting alone." For a moment, Eleanor didn't know what to say. The morning light behind the girl lit up her eyes like stained glass. She looked so young, so open, so alive. Eleanor's fingers brushed the glass as she took the jar. It was still cool from the fridge. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said softly. "That's very kind of you." Lily just smiled again, then ran back down the porch steps, barefoot and light, as if the world had never been heavy at all. Eleanor stood there a little longer, the door still half open, the breeze curling gently around her. She brought the jar back to the table, sat down, and looked at it as if it were something sacred. There was nothing extraordinary about it, just jam. But also not just jam. It was the first time in a long while that someone had offered her something without reason or obligation. Just because they noticed, just because they cared. She opened the lid, spread a little on her toast, and took a bite. The sweetness was gentle, bright, like summer. She smiled without meaning to. A soft, surprised kind of smile. The kind that starts in the chest before it reaches the mouth. Then, as if whispered through the quiet kitchen, a thought appeared. Joy doesn't need a reason. It only needs your attention. And for once, Eleanor gave it hers. Something shifted after that morning. Not loudly, not all at once. Just a gentle tilt in the way Eleanor began to see things. The next day, she noticed the way sunlight moved across her kitchen floor, changing color as it passed through the curtain. She noticed how the toast made a soft crackling sound when she bit into it. She noticed the way her old mug, chipped at the handle, still fit perfectly in her hands. These things had always been there. The same breakfast, the same house, the same quiet. But somehow, it all felt different now, as if something small had come back to life inside her. She didn't go searching for joy. She didn't try to fix the loneliness or erase the ache of missing someone. She just began to look not outward, but inward. And slowly, gently, what she saw began to change. There were moments, tiny, fleeting, when she smiled without meaning to. Moments when she paused in the middle of her routine. Not because she was lost, but because she had found something worth staying with. One afternoon, as she sipped tea on the porch, she watched a squirrel chase its own tail in the grass. It was silly and simple and strangely beautiful. And in that moment, something rose in her, a soft warmth that had nothing to do with memory or longing. Just presence, just being here. She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. The air scented with earth and spring. Somewhere in her mind, a line surfaced, perhaps from an old book, or maybe a whisper from her heart. When you notice, you are already free. She didn't know who said it. It didn't matter. It felt true. Eleanor hadn't planned to change. She hadn't been trying to heal. But joy had found her anyway, not in grand gestures, but in quiet things. In toast, in sunlight, in the soft sound of life continuing. And now, with each small moment, she was beginning to remember what it meant to truly live. Not to chase happiness, but to notice it. The days didn't change in any dramatic way. The mornings were still quiet. The house still creaked in the same places. The toast still popped up from the toaster just a bit too quickly. But Eleanor no longer counted her days by how empty they felt. She began to count them by small things. A moment of warmth. A sound that made her pause. The first sip of tea before the rest of the world stirred. There was a softness now in the way she moved through her mornings. Not to fill time, but to meet it gently. She didn't rush. She didn't wait. She simply showed up. Her joy was no longer something imagined far ahead in another season, in another life, in another version of herself. It was here, in the breeze coming through the window, in the way the light painted slow gold on her kitchen wall, in the comforting scent of old pages when she opened a book she'd read many times before. These were not the things people wrote about in grand stories, but to her, they were enough. Some days were still quiet. Some mornings still carried shadows. But even then, she knew how to look, how to notice, how to be where she was. Fully and kindly, she began writing little notes to herself on torn scraps of paper. Things like birdsong today, bright and silly, or toast was extra crisp, smiled without meaning to. They were simple. They were hers. And as she sipped her tea one gentle morning, watching the light fall just right across the table. She whispered something softly under her breath. Not a lesson, not a conclusion, just a truth she had come to know in her own quiet way. Joy isn't something you wait for. It's something you notice. So now, before we part, take a moment to pause. Breathe. Feel your own body, your own breath, your own place in this moment. And ask yourself, gently, what small moment made you smile today? You're sitting by a window with nothing urgent to do, and nowhere else you need to be. The world outside is moving slowly, just as it should. Light spills softly onto the floor. There's a quiet rhythm in the background, maybe the gentle hum of a fan, or the whisper of wind through the trees. In this moment, there is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to become. You are simply here, and that is enough. Let your breath settle. Let your shoulders drop just a little. There is space now for you to notice. Imagine the warmth of morning sunlight brushing across your skin. Picture the stillness of the room around you, a book resting on the table, the scent of toasted bread rising gently into the air, the comfort of your own quiet presence. You are not waiting for anything. You are not behind. Everything you need for peace is already here waiting to be noticed. Let yourself soften into this awareness. As you breathe in, feel the air expand within you. As you breathe out, allow yourself to sink just a little deeper into stillness. No effort, no goal, just breath and light and presence. Thoughts may still come. Let them. They are like birds passing across the sky. You don't have to hold on. Notice them, then gently return to this breath, this body, this moment. You might hear a memory whisper or feel a question rise. That's okay. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who watches. You are the quiet space beneath the noise. And here, in this space, everything slows down, everything softens. Now, gently bring your attention to your body. Notice the shape of your spine, the weight of your hands, the ground beneath you. Steady and kind. Feel your feet resting, your back supported. Feel how the breath moves through your chest, rising and falling like a quiet tide. There is no part of you that needs to be different right now. You are held. You are whole. Let yourself rest into this simple truth. Now whisper to yourself, gently, I don't have to wait for joy. I only have to notice it. Say it again, softly, I don't have to wait for peace. It's already here, within me. Let these words become part of your breath, part of your being. And now, slowly, you may begin to drift. The mind doesn't need to hold on anymore. The thoughts can quiet like petals falling into water. The body knows how to rest. The breath knows how to soften. There is nothing to do. Nowhere to be. You can let go now. Let go of the day. Let go of the story. Let go of becoming. Just be here soft and safe and still. Your mind is a quiet garden, and tonight, you are the one who chooses what to plant. Let that image settle for a moment. A garden, not in the future, not far away, but right here inside you. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to rush. Just be here now, like someone gently walking barefoot across soft soil. Let yourself arrive. Notice how your body feels in this moment. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands rest. Take a slow breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Again, inhale gently and exhale like a sigh. One more time with softness. And now, as your breath finds its natural rhythm, imagine that you are sitting in a small garden at dusk. The sun is low. The air is cool. The world is quieting. This garden is yours. It doesn't need to be perfect. The ground is open. The sky is wide. You're safe here. There's no need to perform or explain. Just sit and breathe. As you sit, begin to notice what you've carried into this space. Not to judge, only to see. The thoughts from today, the voices you heard, the images you saw, the emotions that linger like seeds. They've all landed in the soil of your mind. Some may have been heavy, some sharp, some soothing, all of it real. But not all of it belongs. And now you choose what stays. Gently, imagine gathering the things that brought tension and placing them beside you. They don't need to be pushed away. Just acknowledged and set down. In their place, invite something kind. Perhaps a gentle word someone said to you, or a moment today that made you smile. Even briefly. Maybe it was the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the taste of something sweet, or a breath that felt just right. Let that one soft moment settle into your mind like a small moon rising over your garden. Quiet, steady enough. You don't need many. Even one seed of peace can grow if given space. Now, notice your breath again, not forcing it, just feeling it move in and out. Ground yourself in your senses, the weight of your body, the fabric under your fingertips, the air on your skin. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are simply here, breathing and beginning again. The mind is a garden, and each breath is a way of tending it. Each kind thought a seed. each gentle pause water, each moment of awareness light. Let the noise fade like evening wind passing through leaves. Let your mind become soft soil, receptive, quiet, free. And as you rest tonight, imagine this garden being nourished by the moon. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, just presence, just peace, just breath. What you feed your mind becomes your life. And tonight, you have chosen calm. You have chosen kindness. You have chosen rest. Let your thoughts settle like petals on water. Let your body grow heavier, like roots into the earth. And let your mind, like the garden, be watered by the silence of night. There is nothing else you need to be, nothing else you need to know. This is enough, Margaret, who had retired a few years ago from teaching, packed away her lesson plans, said goodbye to the school hallways, and moved into a quiet little house just outside town. Her days were full, or at least filled. She watered her garden in the mornings, folded laundry in the afternoons, read books by the window when the sun came through just right. She cooked her own meals, answered texts from her children, and made sure the floor was always clean. From the outside, everything looked calm, steady, but inside, something ached. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet sense that something was missing. That maybe, despite all her doing, she wasn't really arriving anywhere. She had more time now, but her mind felt just as tired as it had when she was working. Maybe even more. At night, she would scroll through her phone, watching people half her age starting new businesses, writing books, doing yoga on mountaintops, changing their lives one perfect morning at a time. And she would lie there wondering if it was too late for her to begin anything new. The thought came like a shadow, soft but persistent. She tried to shake it off by doing more, keeping busy, keeping useful. But the emptiness didn't come from boredom. It came from somewhere deeper, a quiet fear that she was slowing down in a world that only seemed to reward speed. And yet, the more she tried to catch up, the more she felt left behind. One evening, after a long day of doing all the right things, Margaret sat on her porch as the sun dipped low behind the trees. She was tired, but not in the way rest could fix. It felt like she had been running her whole life, always trying to meet a moving target, and now that she'd stopped, she wasn't sure who she was without the chase. She closed her eyes. The breeze was gentle. A bird chirped somewhere far off, and a quiet thought rose in her mind. Uninvited, but true. Maybe the one who walks slowly doesn't arrive last. Maybe they're just less likely to collapse along the way. The shift began quietly. Margaret didn't even expect it. One morning, after hesitating for weeks, she finally attended a community wellness class at the local library. It was a small group, just 8 or 9 older women in folding chairs, a table with tea and sliced fruit in the corner, soft music playing low. She almost didn't go in. She told herself she might feel out of place, too old to start something new, too tired to pretend she was fine. But something in her, tired of her own silence, walked her through the door anyway. That's where she met Agnes, 82 years old. Silver hair pulled back in a loose braid, eyes that didn't dart around, but settled calmly wherever they looked. She didn't speak much at first, just smiled when Margaret sat beside her and offered a paper cup of tea without saying a word. When the group began to share what had brought them there, anxiety, loneliness, sleeplessness, grief, Margaret listened. She felt both exposed and understood. When it was Agnes's turn to speak, her voice was low but steady. She said she had started meditating at 70, just 5 minutes a day. She said, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world, I sit. I breathe. I let the day meet me gently. That's all. Someone asked if she'd always been good at meditation. Agnes chuckled not dismissively, but kindly. You don't have to be good at this, she said, her eyes crinkling with warmth. Just gentle and consistent. Margaret felt something loosen in her chest. She hadn't realized how much she'd been trying to perform her piece to do it right. Or not at all. But here was this woman, serene without perfection, grounded without effort. They spoke more after class, sitting under the trees outside the library. Agnes told her about her quiet mornings, her slow walks, her imperfect breathing. She wasn't trying to be enlightened. She was just practicing presence softly, steadily, without needing a result. And in that moment, Margaret felt something she hadn't in a long time. Not motivation, not excitement, just permission to begin small, to begin late, to begin gently. Margaret didn't think it would matter. 5 minutes sounded like a whisper in a life that had always demanded so much more. But something in Agnes's calm had stayed with her, like a soft echo that wouldn't leave. The next morning, still in her robe, before the kettle boiled, Margaret sat down on the edge of her bed, closed her eyes, and just breathed. It was awkward. Her mind bounced around, reminding her of the laundry, the emails, a strange ache in her knee. But she stayed. Just 5 minutes. Then she stood up, made her tea, and moved on. The next day, she did it again. Not because she felt transformed, but because she didn't want to forget how it felt to sit still, even if it wasn't perfect. At first, her thoughts felt louder in the silence, but slowly, with each small practice, she began to notice the space between them. She stopped trying to clear her mind and started to simply watch it, like weather passing over a quiet field. She no longer expected magic. She expected presence. And that, surprisingly, came more often than she thought it would. Some mornings were restless. Others were soft. But she kept showing up. And over time, something inside her began to shift, not like a door swinging wide open, but like a window cracked just enough for a breeze to come through. She stopped comparing herself. She no longer measured her worth by what she accomplished before breakfast. Her breath became an anchor. Her body, something to return to, not improve, not fix, just befriend. One morning, after her 5th week of practice, she wrote something down in her notebook. Even drops of water, falling steadily, can wear through stone. She didn't remember where she'd heard it, but the words felt like hers now. She read them aloud, slowly, and smiled. Margaret was still the same in many ways, still folding laundry, still tending plants, still sipping tea on the porch. But now, she was also sitting with herself, without trying to escape. Each morning, 5 quiet minutes to come home. It wasn't about doing more. It was about doing less, but with more care. And somehow, that made all the difference. You are walking slowly, gently, not to prove anything, but to be here. The path beneath your feet is soft. The air around you is still. You're not in a rush. You don't need to arrive anywhere. You are simply walking for the sake of walking, being for the sake of being. Let yourself settle into this rhythm. One breath, one step, one heartbeat at a time. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to become. Let the world around you slow down as you begin to meet yourself. Here, in this quiet moment, now, imagine the sound of leaves beneath your feet. Light, crisp, like whispers of time passing without urgency. The sunlight is soft, not harsh. Not blinding, but gentle, like a warm hand resting on your shoulder. You can feel the breeze moving through your fingers. Your arms swing naturally. Your body steady. Your breath in sync with your steps. Each inhale arrives without effort. Each exhale lets go without force. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. You are not late. You are not behind. This is your pace. This is your path. Let your awareness move inward. Begin to notice your thoughts, like clouds floating across a wide, open sky. You don't need to change them. You don't need to follow them. Just notice and let them pass. Maybe your mind is busy today. That's okay. Maybe it's quiet. That's okay too. You are not trying to silence yourself. You are learning to stay with yourself, with kindness, with patience. Even if the thoughts return again and again, you are still here, still breathing, still walking. Now, gently bring your attention to your body. Feel your feet resting on the ground, your spine tall but soft, your shoulders lowering, your hands resting gently, perhaps one over the other, perhaps one placed over your heart. Let that hand become an anchor, not to hold you down, but to remind you you're still here, still alive, still enough. Notice the subtle rise and fall of your breath beneath your palm, the warmth of your own presence. You don't have to understand everything right now. You only have to stay. Say to yourself softly, I don't have to go fast. I don't have to be perfect. I only have to be present. Again, I only have to be present. Let these words settle into your breath, into your chest, into your steps, like seeds, like small drops of water, falling steadily, shaping stone, shaping life. You don't need to rush your healing. You don't need to master anything. What matters is that you show up gently, again and again, and now. If it feels right, imagine that you've stopped walking. You're standing under a tree, the light still moving through the branches. Everything is still. Everything is enough. Your breath, your presence, your intention to return to yourself, that is more than enough. Let yourself be nourished by this stillness. Let your mind soften like earth after rain. Let your body rest like leaves after wind. You are walking this life in your own rhythm, and that rhythm is beautiful. Now, breathe and rest. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly. Margaret stopped needing to be someone else. She no longer chased the idea of a perfect version of herself, the one who woke up early with glowing skin, who meditated flawlessly, who had her life figured out in tidy lists and morning routines. Instead, she simply lived her days, one quiet breath at a time. Each morning, she sat for 5 minutes, not to become enlightened, not to prove anything, just to be with herself. She no longer forced her thoughts to behave. She just watched them come and go, like leaves in the wind. Some days, her mind was still. Some days, it wasn't. But she showed up anyway, gently, steadily. In the afternoons, she tended to her garden. She liked how the soil felt cool between her fingers. She spoke to her plants sometimes, not because they answered, but because they listened. And in the evenings, she made tea, curled up with a book, and felt at peace in her own company. There was no grand transformation, no moment where everything clicked, just a slow returning to something simple and kind. And deeply enough, she began to smile more, not because her life was perfect, but because she had stopped expecting it to be. She let go of rushing, let go of the pressure to make every day remarkable. And in doing so, she began to notice the quiet beauty of ordinary moments, the way the sun warmed the wooden floor, the soft sound of rain on the window, the comfort of her own breath. Margaret no longer needed speed to feel she mattered. She had found something steadier than urgency, the quiet rhythm of her own presence. And it was enough. She had become her own companion, her own soft place to land, a gentle reminder, whispered to herself each day. You don't have to rush to matter. You just have to stay with yourself. So now, before you return to your own life, take a breath and ask gently, what if today you just moved slow, but stayed true? Teresa was 52. She worked in the cafeteria of a small public elementary school just outside town. Most days, she arrived before the sun came up, tied her apron, and started the quiet rhythm of preparing food for children she barely spoke to. Lunch trays, juice boxes, warm soup, small hands reaching out and moving on. It wasn't hard work, not physically. But some days, like today, it felt heavier than it used to. The kind of tired that doesn't live in your muscles, but somewhere quieter, somewhere harder to name. That afternoon, after cleaning the last table, Teresa didn't leave. She sat down in the far corner of the cafeteria, the one that always stayed a little colder and looked out at the empty playground. The sun was already fading. Pale light spilled through the windows, long shadows stretching across the tiled floor. The silence felt thick, not peaceful, just full of everything unsaid. Her hands, still in their thin gloves, rested on a clean tray. She traced the edge of it slowly, absently. The radio in the kitchen had already been turned off. All she could hear now was the occasional creak of pipes and the soft, steady whisper of wind pushing against the old windows. Her lunchbox sat unopened beside her. She hadn't touched it. No appetite. No reason. She leaned back and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It had been a long week. A long season. Really, nothing dramatic had happened. But inside, a quiet question kept returning. Does any of this matter? Every day, she showed up. She gave her energy, smiled when she could, helped where it was needed. But the world moved fast. People didn't look up. Kids didn't remember her name. No one ever said thank you. And as she sat there, alone in that big, empty room. Teresa couldn't help but wonder, if no one notices your kindness, does it still count? Her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes stayed on the playground. The wind picked up again, rattling the old glass. And for a moment, she just sat with the weight of it all. Not angry, not sad, just tired. She stood up slowly, knees a little stiff, and walked toward the back corner to finish sweeping. The cafeteria was nearly spotless by now, just a few stray napkins tucked beneath chairs. The usual trail of crumbs, and a small stack of trays that hadn't made it to the return window. She reached under one of the tables, fingers brushing against something that didn't quite feel like a napkin. It was a folded piece of paper, crumpled at the edges, almost thrown away. She hesitated for a second, then unfolded it. Just a few words, scribbled in pencil, written with the uneven confidence of a young hand. You make the best soup. I wish I could have your soup every day. No name, no drawing, just that. A line from a second grader. No punctuation, no fanfare, just simple truth and warmth. She blinked, unsure what she was feeling. Something caught in her throat, not sadness, not joy, something in between. She sat down again, paper still in her hands. Her fingers brushed over the pencil marks, reading it once more. Then again, as if it might disappear. For a moment, the exhaustion lifted, not fully, but enough. Enough to soften the weight she'd been carrying. Enough to make her feel seen. Somehow, not in a loud way, but like the quiet light that filters through clouds. Teresa looked up toward the windows. The playground was still empty. The wind still pressed softly against the glass, but the room didn't feel as heavy now. Not because the world had changed, but because something small had reached her. Something honest, unfiltered. A child had noticed her, had cared, had written it down without needing to be thanked. Just like that. A line in her mind whispered gently, as if carried by the wind itself. You don't need to be seen to do something that matters. She folded the paper carefully, tucked it into her pocket, and exhaled. This was not a big moment, not a movie ending, but something had shifted, just a little. And sometimes that was enough. Something gentle began to shift inside her, not all at once. Not like a grand awakening, but like a window slowly opening to let fresh air in. The next morning, Teresa woke a little earlier than usual. Not to do anything special, just to sit quietly with her coffee before the day began. When she arrived at the cafeteria, she moved through the motions as always, unpacking trays, setting out utensils, stirring soup. But now, Her hands carried a softer awareness. She noticed the quiet boy in line who always took too long to decide. So she quietly added an extra slice of apple to his tray. No announcement. No comment. Just a quiet offering. She wrote a small message on a milk carton lid. Have a fun day, and placed it on the tray of a girl who often ate alone. Some days, she simply smiled when a student knocked over their spaghetti. She no longer rushed to clean it up. She just bent down, met their eyes, and smiled. Not everything needed fixing. Not every silence needed to be filled. She started keeping a small notebook in her apron pocket, not to write plans or tasks, but to remember the moments that made her feel present. A thank you whispered too softly to be heard. A shared giggle over a tray of tater tots. The way the late sun hit the polished floor after the kids had gone. She didn't do these things to be noticed. In fact, no one did notice. Not really. But that wasn't the point anymore. Something in her was calmer. The tiredness hadn't vanished. The routine was still there. But her heart didn't ache in the same way. There was space now, not for grand meaning, but for quiet kindness. A line she'd once read came back to her, resting gently in her chest like a warm stone. Peace does not come from being important, but from being kind. And so she kept going. One day, then another. Not because she had to, not to be praised, but because in those tiny acts, her own heart felt less heavy, like one clear drop falling into a glass of cloudy water, not enough to change everything, but enough to begin. Imagine you are holding a glass of water, cloudy from a long day. Thoughts swirl like dust in the bottom. Memories, reactions, words you wish you hadn't said, moments you weren't seen or didn't see others. And now, a single clear drop falls in. It's small, barely a sound, but something begins to shift. The water still carries what it carries, but there is a softness now, a beginning. Let yourself be here with that image. No need to rush or explain. Just breathe. Feel your body where it is. The quiet of this moment, the gentle rise and fall of your breath. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to become someone else. This breath is already enough. And this next one is a new one. Feel the air moving in through your nose, cool and quiet, and then leaving, warm and soft. Notice how the breath touches the inside of your body, how it makes space. Without effort, your breath is like a stream, flowing gently, always there, never asking anything from you, except presence and now. Bring to mind a single moment from today. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe you looked someone in the eye and chose not to turn away. Maybe you stayed quiet when your mind wanted to fight. Maybe you smiled. Maybe you simply did nothing at all. And in doing so, caused no harm. Let that one moment rise up in you. Hold it gently, like a clear drop in your hand. That is enough. You don't need to shout it. You don't need to prove it. Let it move through you, like a ripple in the water. Feel where it touches your heart, and breathe there. Let your hands soften. Let your shoulders rest. Let your jaw relax. You are safe to be kind. You are safe to be quiet. You are safe to be yourself. Now, bring your attention down into your chest. You might place one hand over your heart. Feel the warmth of your own body, the subtle beat that's been with you since the beginning. This is your center, not perfect, not polished, but real, alive, and still choosing, in tiny ways, to be soft, to be true. Let that be your rhythm now, just like your breath. A kindness that doesn't need applause. A goodness that exists even when no one sees it. Just like that clear drop falling into the cloudy water, not to change the whole world, but to begin. So tonight, as you settle in, let yourself rest like water in a quiet glass. Let the kindness you've given return to you. Let the stillness you offered others hold you now. Nothing more to do, nowhere else to be. You are already enough. Each morning, Teresa still ties her apron the same way. She still lines up the milk cartons, stirs the soup pot, and wipes down the same tables. The work hasn't changed. No one claps when she serves lunch. No one gives awards for quiet hands or warm smiles. But something has shifted inside her, and that has changed everything. Now, when she slides a tray toward a sleepy child, she notices the way their eyes light up at the smell of something warm. When she places a napkin just a little straighter, or adds one extra slice of fruit for the shy girl at the end of the line, she does it not to be noticed, but because it feels true. Her kindness no longer needs an audience. She walks through her day gently, like someone who knows the worth of small things. She hums while washing dishes. She sits by the window at lunch, letting the sunlight fall across her hands, and feels quietly, fully that she is where she needs to be. Not famous, not praised, but present. The moments pass, and she meets each one with softness. She doesn't need to change the world, just the way she moves through it. And that is enough. Enough to feel the peace that comes not from being important, but from being kind. Enough to sense the invisible ripples her actions leave behind, like a clear drop falling into still water. So if you're listening now, maybe take a breath. Not to fix, not to rush, not to prove, just to be here as you are. And maybe ask yourself, not with pressure, but with gentleness, what if one small act of kindness could ripple further than you think? And even more quietly, what did I plant in the world today, even if no one saw? For 30 years, Franklin had driven the same yellow school bus down the same winding streets of his small Ohio town. He was now 58 and still rising each morning at 5:30, slipping on the same navy jacket, toasting the same slice of bread, and stepping out into the still dark quiet. He would sit behind the wheel before the sun had fully risen, hands resting on the same worn spots of the steering wheel. The dashboard lights blinked on without fanfare. And then, like every other morning, the bus rumbled to life steady, familiar, hollow. The children would climb aboard in bursts, backpacks thudding, sneakers squeaking, laughter spilling over the aisles. And then silence again. After the last one stepped off at school, Franklin would sit in the empty bus for a moment longer than needed. Not out of tiredness, but something else he couldn't quite name. He didn't hate his job. That was the strange thing. There was nothing sharp about the sadness he felt. It was quiet. A kind of dullness that had crept in slowly, like fog over a lake. Some days, he barely noticed it. Other days, it sat beside him in the driver's seat, whispering questions like, "Is this really it? Am I just moving through the motions, waiting for the day to end, only to start again?" Outside, life seemed to go on. People honked, jogged, waved. Seasons changed. But inside Franklin, time felt frozen. The same coffee cup, the same bus stop, the same tired nod at the mirror before bed. He wasn't sure when he had last felt alive, truly moved by something that felt like it mattered. That morning, as he stared out the windshield at the empty school parking lot, sunlight catching the dust in the air, Franklin felt a strange heaviness, not from fatigue, but from the weight of going nowhere. He glanced down at his hands, resting quietly in his lap, and for the first time in a long while, he wondered if he'd been missing something not outside, but within. Something that no schedule, no paycheck, no alarm clock could give. Something that maybe had nothing to do with where the bus was going. That afternoon, school let out just like it always did. The sun hung low, casting soft golden light through the windows of the yellow bus. Franklin sat quietly in the driver's seat, hands resting gently on the wheel as the last few students gathered their bags. He had already flipped on the radio, letting a slow jazz melody hum in the background, something he did without much thought. A quiet habit that filled the silence with a little warmth. One by one, the kids filed out, laughing, chattering, calling goodbye But today, one boy lingered. He looked to be about 8, with a red backpack that seemed too big for his frame. He didn't rush, just sat there, staring out the window, fingers fidgeting with the zipper pull. Franklin glanced at the mirror but said nothing. He waited. Finally, the boy stood up, dragging his bag slowly down the aisle. Just before stepping off, he paused and turned around. "I like riding in your car," he said, voice quiet but clear. "You always play jazz in the morning. Makes me feel safe." Franklin blinked. For a second, he couldn't quite find the words. The boy gave a shy smile, then hopped off the bus and disappeared into the crowd of parents and backpacks. And just like that, the moment passed. But something in Franklin had shifted. A simple sentence, not dramatic, not loud, just true. One small thing he did each day. Without fanfare, choosing a jazz station on the old radio had made someone feel safe, seen, held. He sat there a little longer than usual. The engine idling, the afternoon slipping into quiet. The bus was empty now, but it didn't feel so empty anymore. Even the smallest acts, when done with care, leave quiet footprints behind. He thought about how many mornings he'd driven this route, how many songs had played through the speakers, how many days had felt like repeats of the one before. But maybe they hadn't been. Maybe something had been landing softly all along. And for the first time in a long while, Franklin smiled. Not because anything had changed, but because something had finally touched. Something gentle began to shift in Franklin after that afternoon. He didn't overhaul his life. He didn't write a mission statement or tell anyone about it. But the next morning, when the alarm rang at 5:30, he sat up with a little more presence. Not excitement, just awareness. Instead of brushing through the morning routine like always, he paused before stepping out, grabbed a small box of mints, and tucked it near the dash. He wasn't sure why. Maybe for the kids. Maybe just because. Over the days that followed, he started noticing things he hadn't before. The way Mia, the quiet girl in row 3, always hugged her backpack tightly. The way Ethan liked to sit by the window, but only when no one else was there. Franklin began to remember names, began to greet the children with small waves, quiet nods, a "hey there," "champ," just soft enough to not startle, but clear enough to be felt. He changed the music. 2. No more random static or rushed morning talk shows. He made a playlist of soft jazz, slow folk, gentle piano pieces, something warm, something calm, something that might help a nervous little heart breathe easier before math class. It was never dramatic. No announcements. "Oh, look what I'm doing" moments. Just a slow string of quiet choices, opening the windows when the air was cool, cleaning the dashboard just a bit more, driving a little slower near the park even when he didn't have to. Franklin still drove the same yellow bus, still followed the same route, still watched the same houses blur past the windows. But now, he wasn't just transporting bodies from point A to B. He was noticing, choosing, offering a little steadiness in a world that often rushed past too fast. And slowly, the repetition stopped feeling like a trap. It became something else, something sacred, almost a rhythm, a purpose. When you bring your heart into what you do, it changes the doing itself, and without ever trying to be anyone else. Franklin had begun to truly be himself. You're sitting behind the wheel, not to go anywhere fast, but to notice the road beneath you. You're not in a rush. There is no destination right now. Just this moment. Just your breath. Just the hum of your own presence. Let yourself soften. Let the body rest as if it's in the driver's seat of a quiet morning. Hands resting gently on your lap like they might rest on a steering wheel. Steady. Present. Not gripping too tight. Take a breath in slow and steady, and exhale just as slow. Again, inhale through the nose and out through the mouth. Let the rhythm of your breath become like the hum of an engine at rest. Reliable, grounding, constant. Now imagine you are inside a vehicle, your own little world, and the sun is rising. Light spills through the window, warm against your skin. There is no traffic, no need to be anywhere else. Just this quiet road and your hands resting where they are. You hear the soft sound of wind against the glass. You feel the seat supporting you, the wheel beneath your fingers, the stillness between each sound. And in this stillness, you begin to notice. Notice how even the simplest action, like turning the key, adjusting the mirror, glancing into the rear view, can be done with intention. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just the grace of being here fully. Now, bring this back to your day. Pouring a glass of water. Greeting someone with a gentle good morning. Choosing silence instead of reaction. These are not small things. They are the road. They are the way you move through the world. And the way you move matters. Let your breath return to center. Notice if your mind has wandered. That's okay. Just come back. Come back to this gentle rhythm. Imagine again your hands on the wheel, not to control everything, but to guide, to stay with yourself, in the motion, in the pause, in the softness of now. The road doesn't ask you to be fast, or important, or perfect. It just asks, are you here? Now place your attention gently on the chest. Feel the rise and fall with every breath. This body has carried you. This heart has cared, even on days when it felt unnoticed. Let your breath move into that space. Let it soften anything that feels tight. Let it warm anything that feels forgotten. And now, whisper to yourself silently or out loud, I don't have to do more to be enough. I only need to show up with heart. Stay here just a few more breaths, quiet, aware kind. And when you're ready, gently return to your space. Not with urgency, but with presence, just like that first turn of the key in the morning. Smooth, clear, here. Because every act can be meaningful when done with a quiet heart. The bus still hums down the same streets. The same trees blur past the windows. But something in Franklin has shifted. He now wakes up a little earlier, not to rush, but to slow down. He pours his coffee with both hands, listening to the sound of it filling the cup. He doesn't check the clock as often. He selects his playlist with care. Soft jazz or gentle piano, depending on the sky. The mornings are still early. The roads are still quiet, but they no longer feel empty. Some days, as the children climb aboard, he nods quietly, already recognizing the ones who need space and the ones who need a smile. He doesn't say much, but he's there, fully, not just a driver on a schedule, not just a man filling time, but a steady presence, a silent rhythm. And sometimes, just sometimes, he catches a moment that feels like a gift. A child who never spoke begins to hum along with the music. Another leaves behind a sticky note that says, I like your bus. Nothing grand, nothing viral, but enough. Franklin still lives in the same house, eats the same breakfast, drives the same yellow bus. But now, he brings intention into the way he lives, into the way he turns the wheel, holds the mug, greets the morning. His life didn't change from the outside, but the way he moves through it did. Because purpose doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's just a whisper, a hand on the wheel, a warm nod, a song playing low. And yes, you don't need to wait for a big moment to start living with meaning. So tonight, before you close your eyes, ask gently, what's one small thing you could do with intention starting tomorrow? Have you ever felt close to someone and yet deeply far away? You share the same room, sit at the same table, maybe even sleep under the same roof. But there's a quiet distance between you, not caused by anger, not even by silence, but by absence. The kind of absence where eyes don't meet. Words are exchanged, but not really heard. One talks, the other nods, both hearts wandering somewhere else. Maybe it's happened with a partner, a parent, a friend, or even yourself. That moment when you realize you've been carrying your thoughts alone for too long, hoping someone would ask and mean it. Or the time you sat across from someone you love and couldn't find the right words. So you just smiled and let the moment pass. We live in a world more connected than ever, and yet so many of us feel unseen. We scroll through messages, leave voice notes, share updates, but somehow forget to pause, to look, to be with someone fully. And in those moments, the heart grows quieter. It doesn't cry out loud. It just dims. But deep down, we all long for one thing. Not grand gestures, not perfect conversations, just a moment of true presence. A soft gaze that says, I see you. A gentle pause that says, I'm here, not to fix or to advise, just to be, because being seen, truly seen, is one of the simplest and most healing forms of love. And sometimes that's all we need to begin again. To feel held, even if just for a breath. So tonight, if your heart has felt far from someone or even from yourself, maybe it's not too late. Maybe all it takes is a little more presence and a little less distance. Sometimes we think we need the perfect words to truly connect, that we must fix something, solve something, or impress someone in order to matter in their life. But connection, real connection, is much simpler than that. It's not always about speaking. Often, it's just about staying, about being there fully, without distractions, without waiting for a reply or needing to be understood. When we offer someone our quiet presence, when we truly see them, without rushing to fix them, something soft happens. The space between us grows warmer, safer, even a moment of shared silence, when it's honest and undivided, can say more than 1,000 comforting phrases. The world may never notice it, but the heart will. Presence is the purest gift you can offer. Not grand gestures, not perfect advice, just presence. That is where connection begins. When someone feels seen not through your eyes, but through your attention. And even if you never say the words out loud, your presence tells them, I see you. I'm with you. You matter. And just like that, a seed is planted, not for applause, not for recognition, but for the simple, quiet joy of letting someone know they are not alone tonight. So maybe the next time you sit beside someone, whether in silence or in words, you won't try to be perfect. You'll just be there. Really be there. Maybe you've seen it, a quiet nod between two strangers passing in the early morning. No words, No reason, just a small gesture that says, "I see you." Or maybe it's a soft hand, reaching across a hospital bed to gently hold another. No promises, no answers, just warmth and a kind of quiet faith. Sometimes connection isn't loud. It doesn't ask for attention. It shows up in little moments, like a slow glance across the dinner table where no one rushes to speak, and yet everything is understood. Picture this now, as if you're looking out from a window at night. There's a street lamp casting light on two neighbors standing outside. One hands the other a warm drink. Nothing more, no applause, no explanation, just presence shared in the simplest of ways. And somehow, it lingers. These are the invisible threads we carry. Threads that tie us together without needing to pull. They whisper instead of shout. And still they hold. A gentle gaze, a light touch, a still moment where two hearts pause in the same silence. In these moments, healing begins, not from a miracle, but from being gently reminded that we are not alone. So tonight, as you lie here in quiet, let those soft images stay with you. Let them wrap around your heart like a blanket. Because even the smallest connection, when offered with care, can bring light into the darkest room. Sometimes, connection begins with something as small as looking up. Looking into someone's eyes, not to say anything wise, but simply to be there with them. Tomorrow, maybe you'll have that chance. At the breakfast table, in line at the store, even passing by a coworker. You don't have to offer the perfect words. You just have to pause long enough for them to feel seen. Maybe you'll listen, truly listen to someone tell a story you've heard before. But this time, you'll stay with them through it. No phone in hand, no thoughts of the next task. Just your quiet attention, like a gift gently placed in front of them. Or maybe you'll send a short message to someone you appreciate. Not long, not poetic, just a real thank you. Honest, simple, like a soft hand resting on their day. These acts may seem small, but they echo, sometimes louder than we know. They tell the people around us, "You matter. I'm glad you're here." And that is enough. That is connection. Not in the big gestures, but in the quiet ones we choose again and again. So, as you prepare to rest tonight, take one breath for yourself and one breath for someone you care about. Let the thought of kindness be the last thing you hold. And ask yourself, softly, tomorrow, who will feel seen because of you? There's a quiet kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much, but from always trying to be more productive, more likable. more successful. Somewhere along the way, we began measuring ourselves against invisible lines set by strangers online, or silent expectations in the eyes of people around us. We scroll through perfect photos, curated lives, carefully chosen words that say, "I've made it." And maybe we believe we haven't. Maybe we look in the mirror and only see the things we're not yet. Not thin enough, not brave enough, not accomplished enough. So we keep stretching, reaching, as if happiness lives just beyond the next milestone. But what if it doesn't? Imagine a person reaching for a distant door, floating just out of reach. They strain and stretch, unaware that they're already standing on solid ground. The air is quiet. The ground is steady. But they don't feel it because their eyes are only on the door. Maybe that's us. Sometimes not broken, not behind, just distracted. We forget the quiet truth. We're already whole, even in progress, even in uncertainty, even in rest. Tonight, let that sink in. You don't have to run toward another version of yourself. You don't have to earn your place here. Let this be the breath where you come back to who you already are. Maybe happiness was never about having more. Maybe it was always about seeing clearly. Seeing yourself, not in comparison to anyone else, but in the quiet light of your own being. We spend so much time looking sideways, checking if we're ahead, behind, or somehow falling short. But what if you didn't have to be more than anyone? What if the only thing that matters is being real with yourself? You don't need to shine like someone else's version of success. You just need enough light to see your own steps, enough clarity to know what brings you peace, enough honesty to admit what doesn't. A flower does not think of competing. It just blooms. And you're allowed to unfold in your own way, in your own time, at your own pace. Not every path has to be loud. Not every victory has to be seen. Some of the most meaningful growth happens quietly when no one's watching. But you feel it inside. A little more ease in your breath. A little less need to prove. Tonight, can you allow yourself that softness? You don't need to be better to be worthy. You're not a project, and you're a presence. Let that thought rest beside you like a gentle hand. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're simply blooming, even now. Picture this. A person standing by a windowsill every morning, watering a small plant. No one's watching. No one will ever praise them for it. But they do it anyway, not for applause, but because they love the green, because it matters to them. Somewhere else, a single candle glows in a quiet room. It's not dazzling. It doesn't need to be. It simply fills one corner with warmth. Soft. Steady. Enough there's an old sweater folded neatly on a chair. It's not stylish. The sleeves are frayed, but it's been with you through winters that asked more of your heart than your body. It held your shoulders on days you thought you'd fall apart. And tonight, as you sit with yourself, that's enough. You don't have to dazzle. You don't have to bloom for anyone to see. You just have to be here. To keep showing up for the small things that mean something to you. To tend your garden, however small. To light your one candle. To wear the sweater that makes you feel like home. You don't need to grow taller to be real. You just need to root deeper into yourself. What's ordinary to the world can still be sacred to you. What doesn't sparkle can still shine gently in your life. This, too, is a kind of light, a kind of wholeness, a kind of happiness that asks for nothing except that you stay close to who you are. So maybe tomorrow, you don't have to wake up trying to fix yourself. Maybe you don't need to earn your rest. You are not a project. You are a person. You can sit down with your morning coffee without checking how much you've achieved. You can pause before breakfast and let the silence be a friend. You can cook a meal just for you, not rushed, not skipped, not from guilt, but like you would if someone you loved was sitting at the table. Stir gently, plate it slowly, light a candle if you want. You can stop measuring your worth by how busy or useful you've been. Breathe. Let the dishes wait a little. You're not behind. You're not late. You are here. And that is enough. Some days you'll be tired. Some days your list will be untouched. Still, you are worthy of softness, of peace, of sitting still without needing to earn it. Your value is not a race, not a role. It is a presence, and you have that already. So if tomorrow comes, meet it gently. Speak to yourself kindly. Let the mirror reflect someone who doesn't need fixing, only a little more kindness. And if you forget, that's okay too. Begin again with a breath, one quiet act of care, one kind glance in the mirror, one moment of choosing ease, and maybe, just maybe, that's what wholeness looks like. No medals, no applause, just breathing, eating, resting, living with heart, with presence, and with deep, steady compassion for the self you already are. So now, gently ask yourself, what if who you are now is already enough to be kind? You've come a long way. Gently, slowly, just by being here. Maybe you didn't notice it, but something inside you has softened. Through these stories, you've touched the quiet strength of small acts, the beauty of simple connection, and the calm that comes when we stop trying to become someone else and start arriving in who we already are. You've planted tiny seeds tonight of kindness, of enoughness, of intention. And you didn't have to try hard. You didn't have to prove anything. You just listened. You felt. And in doing so, something shifted. Sometimes, that's all it takes. A moment of stillness. A breath that reaches a little deeper. A memory that finds its way home. You don't have to rush to grow these seeds. You don't even have to know what they'll become. Just trust that something good has been set in motion. There's a quiet magic in simply showing up, in being present, even just with yourself. You don't need to fix everything before morning. You don't need to figure out your entire life tonight. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to rest. And in this rest, healing happens not in loud ways, but in ways that stay. Let this be a gentle reminder that your presence matters. The way you smile, the way you listen, the way you care, even when no one sees it. Those are not small things. They are seeds of peace. And peace doesn't always come from answers or achievements. Sometimes it comes from letting go, just enough to feel the ground beneath your feet again. So now, as the night deepens and the world around you grows quieter, let this be the part where you don't try anymore, where you just let it be. You have done enough. You are enough. The seeds are already in the soil. You don't need to push them to bloom. They know what to do. So take this breath. Feel how soft it is. Let it carry you into rest. And when morning comes, may something inside you remember that happiness isn't always loud, and fulfillment doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it simply sits with you in silence and stays. Take a moment now to let the day soften behind you. Let your body settle, wherever you are, in bed, under a soft blanket, or simply lying still in the quiet of night. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to become anyone. This moment is enough. This breath is enough. Like the earth after sundown, you too are allowed to rest. Imagine now a garden at night. The sky is deep and still. The moon hangs softly above. In the quiet soil below, tiny seeds are sleeping. They are not growing yet, but they are not lost. They are simply resting, gently, in the dark, with complete trust that what they are becoming will come in its own time. You are like that too. A quiet garden, a soft place where something beautiful is already unfolding. Even if you can't see it, even if nothing moves on the surface tonight. Now, take your attention to the top of your head. Let the space around your scalp soften, your forehead loosen, your eyebrows drift apart. Let your eyes grow heavier, your cheeks relax, your jaw release. Unclench your teeth if you notice any holding there. There is nothing you need to say, nothing to figure out. Bring awareness to your neck, your shoulders. Invite them to drop, even just a little, like leaves falling gently from a tree. Let your arms soften. Elbows, forearms, wrists, hands, all the way to the fingertips. Let go of what you carried today. Shift awareness now to your chest, your breath moving in and out. Feel the rise and fall like slow waves. There's no need to deepen it. Just follow. Gently bring your awareness to your belly. Let it expand naturally and settle. You are safe. Now, bring your attention down into your hips, your lower back, your thighs. Let the weight of your legs be held by the surface beneath you. Allow your knees to soften, your calves, ankles, and feet, all the way to each toe. You are not holding the world right now. You are being held from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Your whole body is resting. Your breath is like a breeze through that quiet night garden. Nothing forced, just moving gently through. If thoughts appear, that's okay. Let them drift by like clouds across a moonlit sky. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to change them. Just return to the feeling of your breath, the ground beneath you, the way the body becomes quieter, more open, more still. And now, notice the feeling of simply being, not doing, not achieving, just being. You don't need to bloom tonight. You don't need to wake the seed. Just let it sleep. Let yourself sleep. Let the night hold you, the way the earth holds every seed, with patience, with warmth, with trust. You've done enough for today. You've listened. You've felt. You've breathed. Let this rest be your gift, not your reward. There is nothing more to figure out. You are safe to release, safe to sink, safe to fall gently into sleep. When morning comes, the light will return, and so will you. But for now, the garden sleeps, and so do you.